Hello YouTube and welcome back to another video on the Tool Teardown channel. In today's video, a little bit different. We're going to do another unboxing. I hope you guys like that sort of stuff. The previous unboxing we did about snowplow wasn't so well received by so many, I think, in terms of just looking at the number of people who watched that video. Anyway, I guess not everybody in the world is in the market for a snowplow at the end of March. So this machine, I think I saw in one of the comments of one of the videos that somebody requested to have a look at this thing. So here we are. If you have a request for certain things, let me know in the comments, and I can't promise anything. I'm not made of money, so I have to go and buy this stuff myself. Enough with the waffle, let's get straight into it. Now, as with the previous one, it's quite a big machine, so we'll have to zoom out a little bit. So there we have it. The Einhell Cordless bench type circular saw, according to the label. Sorry, I had to look that up. But basically it's a cordless job site table saw or a cordless table saw without the legs. Let me just, there we go. So this is a 36 volt battery powered table saw. This happens to be the cheapest cordless table saw on the internet that I could find. The next best thing, I think, is either a Bosch Professional with a cordless opportunity, which is at least double the price, if not more. Official retail price for these things is 299 euros, but you can pick them up on a good deal on things like Amazon for 220 euros. I don't know what they cost in the UK, but I'll put the prices down below, and I'll put the US dollar conversion in there as well, just for reference for the price. I don't actually think they sell this in America just yet, but they do rolling out the Power Exchange platform over there as we speak, apparently. This is the exact same device, if you're watching this from the UK, as the XL corded version. So it comes with a cable. If you're watching this from Germany, this is the exact same model as the JCB corded job site table saw, professional table saw, whatever they call it. They look exactly the same. I mean, the JCB is yellow, this thing is red. The XL is actually the same color red. The switch is different, but they're all the same basic saw. So if you're interested in one of those, apart from the electronic bits, everything else will be pretty much identical. I've read in some of the reviews and comments on there that there's people who got them as cheap as 160 euros on a Black Friday sale, which, if you look at it, battery powered table saw that does full width sheet apply. And I also want to address some comments that I read here and there about people complaining that it's not very accurate. But as with many table saws or any precision instruments as such, they might need some setting up before you can use them properly. And especially at this price point, you can't really expect that these guys in the factory where they mass produce these things in China, that they're going to spend a lot of time adjusting every single saw to the last, because it's simply not time versus money versus, it's just not going to happen. So even on the more expensive premium brands, the DeWalt's, your Makitas, your Bosch, there is some adjustments required here and there to get the most out of your saw. So we'll do a three-stage or three-part video series about this saw. The first one will be this one that you're watching now, where we do an unboxing and we assemble it, and we'll give a first look around, see what all the features and functions are. Then the second video will be a setup, so we're setting up all the different items so that you can cut wood or materials accurately. And then we do some test cuts to make sure that what we've set up is actually happening as well. So you can then see how it cuts, what it does, etc. And then we'll do a third video where we do our usual teardown, have a look at the individual components, see how good, bad it is, quality-wise, what do you get for your money, sort of thing. So a mini-series, three-part video. Now before we start getting into the box, a quick rundown of the features. So model number of this particular saw is the TETS 36210 Lithium Solo, as in the Solo is no baterías, so the batteries are separate, which for those of you who are already part of the Einhell platform, you must have got some batteries kicking about already. It's obviously 2 batteries, meaning it's a 36 volt device. So 2 times 80 volt battery. Minimum recommendation according to the manufacturer is at least to 2.5 amp hour batteries. I'd recommend going bigger than that if you want to get any performance out of this thing. Obviously the best thing would be to get the is it the 6 amp hour battery? That's their biggest at the minute. I think they're going to introduce an 8 amp hour battery later this year, and there's going to be a 10 amp hour next year as well, I think. So they are slowly catching up with the big boys. 210 is the diameter of the saw blades in the saw. 40 teeth with a 210mm diameter, which is sort of the smallest usable table saw size out there. So Bosch Professional, as I mentioned before, they'll do the same saw blade size and dimension. It does say here 0 to 70mm, but you can actually get a little bit more out of that. I'll go into that detail later on. So at a 90-degree angle, so 90-degree perpendicular to the table, 70mm cut depth at its maximum. Then at a 45-degree angle, so at a tilted blade, you can cut up to 45mm max. Or extension of the table to the right. And that allows you to cut up to 62.5 centimeters or 625mm without the little extension piece there. And then we have obviously an aluminium tabletop, fully aluminium, so it's not one of those cheapo pressed steel tops that you get on some of the even cheaper table saws, the corded table saws. Whoops. And the one thing I did notice is that if you look in the corner, I think somebody's already been in it, because the box is already sort of, it's got a piece missing which is underneath the tape, so I think it might have been a returns that we've got here. So let's see if it's actually a table saw inside and not a box of rocks or a bag of sand or whatever people do to scam Amazon these days out of returns. So yeah, fingers crossed. Let's see what we find, shall we? Oh, there is a table saw in it. There is a table saw in it, not a box of rocks. Okay. So in the box we find a table saw upside down, the dust extractor. Oops, sorry, that was out of the frame. And then we have our newspaper selection of this week. Okay, the manual, a box of bits, nicely smashed up. Sounds broken. So let's get this out. Oh. The aluminium I forgot the word for this thing. Parallel guide. The Germans call it Parallelanschlag. Hey? It's the parallel guide to the saw blade, so you can have perfectly straight pieces of timber that you, or whatever else you cut with this thing. I'm not in the frame, am I? Yeah. Let's pull that to one side for now. So this is what it looks like in the box, upside down, when you remove all the other ancillaries. As you can see already, we have an aluminium table. That's a cast aluminium table. The motor housing, so the die-cast aluminium. The frame is metal, and then the foot have a rubber insert in them, and then a plastic sort of housing holding them together. And then the back here you got your battery terminals. The cover plate is also metal, but we go into more detail that. So let's lift this out of the box, put it on the workbench, and then we can have a closer look at what we're working with here. Now as you lift it out of the box, the few extra parts that are included with this saw is a little guide for smaller pieces of timber that you can put on the anyway, moving on. And then you got your little push stick arrangement, simple piece of plastic, nice and sturdy, simple design, no rubberized feature or anything on there, but then again you just use it to push your wood past the saw blade when you know, you don't want to get too close with your fingers, because you might end up with less fingers than you started off with, which is obviously not something that you want. Now this is a portable unit, so it comes with a handy grip on this side, so you can carry it on this. The weight of this device, but we'll check it on the scales. So without the accessories, we have a weight of 12.9 kilograms, and with the accessories we have a weight of 14.6. We can see from this angle as well the two little wing nut, the two wrenches that come with it to swap out the included saw blade. So we got a small one and a big one. Just simple pressed steel wrenches, galvanized, but I guess you need them to be thin to get in there from the top to remove them. So they're there. I'll put them back for now so we know where they are. So from this end you can see the gearing. It's a plastic gearing, but it's a fiberglass reinforced. The shaft has a little bit of play in it, so there is no bearings as such in this shaft. This is where the budget part of the tool comes in then, I guess. This is a few little bearings in there and the whole thing would be solid, and it gives you that little bit more of quality feel, because it's a little bit wobbly at the minute. There's plenty of grease on it, but I'll flip it around in a minute. And a very easy adjustment on the motor. It does tilt a little bit as you hit the bottom here, so the whole thing is a little bit and there's a little bit of play in that way, so that's something we're going to have a look at when we're cutting. This is not a brushless motor, this is a brushed unit. You can take the cover off it. It's a good shape cover, so the side panels come off, so you can swap out the brushes in case you need them. So from a serviceability point of view, not bad. And then on this side the housing is all aluminium. Anyway, let's put this back to upright. Let's flip it around and have a look at the other side. So this is the front of the machine, upside down obviously, the on-off switch, which is quite a good, there's no two buttons to press, you just pull it forwards to turn it on and you push it to turn it off. This is your height adjuster obviously, and this is your angle adjuster, so you get your miters from 0 to 90, whichever way you look at it. Ooh dear. To 0 degrees. That's that. And then you got a little storage pouch there for your push stick. Obviously the device is upside down, so it might look a bit weird, but hey. Oh, that's pretty snug in there, because it's actually got a clip, a retainer in there, so it doesn't fall out when you're carrying it along. So that's a good feature. And the only criticism that I could have there is it's very close to the grip, so your hand is touching it when you're trying to carry it. So anyway, and then this is the lever to unlock and lock the sliding table extension. So you can make the table bigger, smaller, wider, I think is the word, or narrower, depending on the workpiece that you're cutting, the width of it. It's all, the handles are plastic. Again, they feel proper. I need to look at the markings, but we'll do that in a separate video where we do a teardown on the tool to look at the individual components and show you what it's made of and how the individual components are like, as we like to do on this channel. You can see the metal frame. So it's a metal frame with a metal front cover plate, and it's screwed onto the table here and obviously on the other side, so it's 4 points of contact, and again rubberized feet on both sides. These ones actually have rubber all the way around it and a rubber buffer at the bottom, so you can store it upright if you are working from a small workshop. The cardboard box that comes with it has an adapter in it for the dust extraction on the back of the device, so you can fit either a shop vac or a normal Hoover size thingy, so you have the bigger opening and the smaller opening there that you could play with. So that's that bit. And then we have the riving knife, metal one. Unfortunately this device, or this table saw, doesn't come with one that sinks down far enough so you can do covered cuts. You can remove it, so you can remove it completely, which is obviously not recommended. So it would be nice if they had an optional shorter one for the covered cuts. But anyway, and then we have the angle slide miter gauge, whatever it's called. So you can set your angles, and then you can adjust with these screws. You can obviously adjust this bit, and then you can guide your workpieces. If I can get this to work, there you go. You can guide your workpieces past the saw in that motion. So yeah, that's everything in the box. Having a look at the top of the table, as you can see when I hold the light in here, it's very oily. It's aluminium, but still they oiled it up nicely. This extension piece, which is the slide out section, is metal. I think the earlier saws used to have this out of aluminium, or at least the same colour, could be wrong. But yeah, and then the rails, including the bit that's mounted to the aluminium table, it's all aluminium. It slides very smoothly till about here, and then I think the sagging, so this is your maximum level. Yeah, it does have a bit of play in it then. In case you're wondering what your workable table saw table size is, for lack of better wording, when it's all sort of folded together, as in its smallest configuration, we have a usable table width of 54 centimeters. We have a depth of 48 centimeters, up to the marker there. The saw blade is 27 centimeters off the left side of the table and 26.5 centimeters off the right hand side of the table. Now if we extend the table, whoop, then we all of a sudden have a full width of the table of 91 centimeters, which is like right on the edge here, with the fence installed, and the fence sort of installed in a comfortable position so that it's actually still on the table without hanging off the edge of the rails. And extend it all the way. We have precisely 90 centimeters of, whoa, the light just went down, 90 centimeters in width, or 900 millimeters from the maximum extension of the fence and the table to the saw is 62.5 centimeters, as already mentioned. So you can perfectly cut full sheet sizes that are sort of commonly regularly available within the DIY merchants and building industry. You can cut them perfectly in half. So the miter gauge, it slides in either here, but you can see, so you will have a degree or so play in this. So It's already scratching the table because of it. But yeah, all nicely machined aluminium. So apart from this bit and the ends, obviously the plastic ends, it's plastic, ABS plastic to be precise. But yeah, again, it's even on the more expensive Bosch and DeWalt's. I think the only one that does a nice one out of the box is Metabo. All these other ones, they are a little bit cheapish, and they throw them in, you know, for free. Let's just run it up and down. There's a slight bit of movement in it. Probably a mil either way. Yeah, there's a bit of play in the saw actually. There's no batteries in it, so I'm not going to chop my fingers off, obviously. So the blade that he uses is obviously an Einhell included blade, comes pre-installed with it. So this is the maximum height it can do, 70 millimeters. And the blade is a 1.8 millimeter blade, so very thin, which obviously is to help with the battery power tool not having to cut too much in terms of width, because you lose a lot on performance, obviously, because of the battery powered system. So battery powered saws, even the hand sickler saws, they tend to have thinner blades in them than the corded versions. So here we see the lever to lock the slider. So it's locked now, and then you pull it towards you to unlock it. It's latching here, and on the other side I'll show you from underneath how the latching mechanism works. But yeah, you just pull on it to unlock it, and then you can slide it accordingly. And then you set it a certain setting, you push it away from you to lock it in place. To open up the cover for access to the saw blade, we can see when we roll it up a little bit. I'll have to move the camera slightly a bit. And you can see there's slight movement when you running the saw up and down. As I said, got a little bit of play, because the mechanism is only really driven from the front and not from the front and the back. It's got a guide, a slider guide, but the mechanism is really only supported at the front, which is why it's rigid at the front but not so much at the back. And then we undo the cover, turn it 90 degrees to the unlock setting there. There's a little icon there. And then we remove the device. You have a little pull hole there. It's quite tiny. It is plastic, so yeah, expect it to be a little bit on the weeble wobble. If we have a look at it, this again is ABS plastic. I don't know why they don't make this out of PA6 with some glass fiber reinforcement in it. It just makes it that much more stiffer. I guess this is where the budget cutting comes from. And then you can see the locking mechanism is just a simple, it just rotates like that, which is obviously attached to your little wrench thing. So yeah, and then you use the two included wrenches to undo the let's get some light in there, to undo the nut and bolt on there. One is to hold the saw in place, which I guess, yeah, so one you hold on there, the other one you hold on the bolt, and then you undo the blade, put the new blade on. Then down the back here you undo this bolt to put the riving knife in, and down the back here, now we have it open, you can see this is the slider mechanism for the angle adjuster. So you can see that's nicely suspended in a plastic bushings. It's well lubed up, so expect when cutting is commencing, a lot of sawdust will enter into these areas and stick to the GUI, so it will go stiff after a while, so you might end up having to clean it out a little bit. Now while we're looking down this angle, and it's a bit difficult to see, but you can see there's a hole here which goes straight out the back, and put the camera a bit closer. You can see there's a gap where this cover plate, you might be able to get this a little bit tighter so it actually sits flush and stops more of the dust getting out. But yeah, you can see obviously this is where the adjuster hole, this hole needs to be there, but you could say they could cover it up with a piece of fabric, and then around the back here there is an opening, as well as obviously down there, so expect some dust to get out. Same at the front, there is a little opening down there, but all in all I've seen a lot more expensive saws with a lot less covering here for sawdust extraction. Now some people, I've read some reviews online saying that the frame is crooked, as in it's not welded in or bolted in correctly. We'll have a look at how it's assembled, but I guess these tubes are bent and then screwed in place, so there might have been some inconsistency there, but there is no wobble. I guess they've increased the rubber footing slightly to compensate for an eventual offset. So we're moving on to the assembly part of the saw. There isn't a lot to assemble, but yeah, the few bits that you got is obviously the parallel guide, which sits on here, and then you have the extra option here to add to the side. So you have, if you have thin workpieces, you know, you can't quite guide them here, especially when you're working close to the saw, it's easier to have a lower fence, so you can use this guide. The important bit is obviously to have the fence in the front section more than, you don't need it at the back, because from here on to the back the wood is already separated in most cases, so it's more important to have a straight guide up here, so to feed it straight into the saw rather than down the back, which is why this section is shorter. Obviously for parallel clamping they made this the full length of the table so that you can clamp it in place. Let's see how straight this is by putting it on here, and just like adjusting it at the front, making sure it's parallel there, and then put it in, and then there's a tiny bit at the back. So you can see here that the fence is slightly inwards. That needs a small adjustment. The adjustment can be made by loosening these two screws. I can show you again on this side. So we'll put it there on the edge with the cover, so you can see there's a small gap there. I deliberately left a little gap there, and it's hanging inwards a little bit, so there is a little bit of play. The way it works is it's got a small little plastic clamp that clamps onto the edge of the aluminium on the back, and then at the front it got a mechanism like so it's clamping itself into this V-groove here. So by pushing the handle, once it's in there, it's pretty fixed. You can't, only at the back you can move it slightly, but at the front it's solid, which is the important part. Obviously your gauge to read off the setting, obviously you can have a little bit of a tolerance issue. Again, it can be adjusted with the little screw there. Now to install the riving knife and the dust extractor, or safety guard I guess, which attaches to the riving knife, the little hole there, you have to remove the cover. Obviously make sure the batteries are out so that you're not cut your own fingers off in the process, which is all a bit nice and bloody, which you don't want. Put the saw at a 90 degrees so it's easier to access with the tooling. To undo the little bolt, undo the 10mm nut, or bolt, sorry. Then you take the riving knife place it in the opening and it will lock in place. You have a little bit of adjustment opportunity up and down, but that's about it. So you can't, like I said before, you can't lower it down so you can have covered cuts that you can make with the saw. You have to either remove it, which is strongly not recommended, or, I said, it would be nice if Einhell made an optional riving knife that was lower, so you can do that and just swap them out. So it's not toolless like in some saws, but it's in there, not too complicated. Put the cover plate back on it, lock it in place, and you'll be done with it. There we go. Now to put the safety guard on it, so you can see the safety guard. Again, it's a polycarbonate PC. It's two pieces screwed together, little screws here and there, and then one side is slightly longer than the other, so that when you tilt it 45 degrees, the blade is still somewhat covered, not fully, but it's still somewhat covered. And then the way this is working is you've got a little screw with a spring in there so that it's pushed out once it's undone, and then you can just screw it tight like so. Pushes it out so that you can slide it onto the blade through the hole. Trying to locate the hole, just get the angle right. There you go. Screw it in place, and you can screw this thing as tight as you want. This thing will always be somewhat loose and floppy. I mean, the riving knife itself, it's tight down there, but it does have a little bit of play, so that you can have this as your safety guard. And then, as I said, when you cover it, you still have some cover here because this side is slightly lower than the other side, but if you're cutting at a 45-degree angle, there is opportunities for your fingers to get in there, so use this. Stay away from that. You turn it into a meat slicer instead of a wood cutting machine. You don't want that. Now, I've already briefly shown this device, so this slides in here. Or also here. Obviously you have to move this bad boy out of the way. It won't slide now because this thing is adjusted. Whoever adjusted that in the factory needs a talking to. That's just not even trying to adjust it. Eh? So yeah, let's just put it like this for now. Exaggerate it. Yeah, you can also use it here. So you have two opportunities to use the mitre gauge there to cut angles on your work pieces. This, when you're not using it, just as with all the other accessories, you can store onto the device by ways of these options here. So slide it in like that, and I guess what we have to do first is slide it so that it's not sticking out so much, and then maybe also, where does it need to go? I haven't wrapped the newspapers that come with the device, so I might be wrong, but I guess it's like so. Slide it in somewhat, there we go, and then you clip it in down the other end, like so. The only problem now is, if you're trying to grab it, there isn't really that much space for your hands to go, because on the back here is where the push stick is, which is very close to the handle. So that's touching your hand sort of, and then this thing here. The problem is you can't fit it the other way around because this thing is so close to the end it won't slot into this aperture here. So yeah, the storage arrangement versus the handle here, not so much well thought out. Now in the marketing images that you can see on the interwebs, on the websites and stuff, where the person is carrying it across the garden, this device is on the table, but if it's on the table, it's not held in by anything, so it can slide around. There is this enormous space around here. Obviously you got the rubber bumpers. This is a handle to grab it on. You got the rubber bumpers to park it upright, but then you could have that arrangement push stick stuff down here when you're not using it, storing it. There's no batteries, so there should have been not such a chaotic situation on the side where the handle is. Now, to engage the batteries, 2 batteries you need obviously. I've got some old style 4 amp hour batteries. You slot them in, one there, one at the top. There's plenty of room for the bigger 6 amp hour batteries, so there's lots of room there, so that's not going to be a problem. So this saw will take anything in terms of the offering of Einhell's batteries at the minute. So let's fire her up, shall we? Whoa! So there you have it, the unboxing and assembly of the Einhell Cordless 36 volt job site table saw. This is obviously a saw that's more catered for the home DIY user. I think if you want to use this every day to make money, as in a professional builder, etc., then this might not be the saw for you in terms of long-term durability. As to why that is, check out part number 3 of this series. In part number 2, we're going to go and cover the setup of the saw. Thumbs up is much appreciated. If you're not already, click the subscribe button about there. Check out some of the other videos up there. And then we'll see you in one of my next videos. Stay safe and be nice. Goodbye.